All right, now, everybody. Quiet, listen to me. We're going to start a show. Now, some of you people have been with me before. You know it's going to be a tough grind, but we're going to have a show.
Thank you, everyone, for that smattering of recorded applause. I am so warmed by it. And hello, Kim.
Kim, how are you?
After a beautiful weekend, wherever you were in this great world. I shouldn't say wherever you were. There's certainly places in this great world that were not so terrific to be in this weekend. But we appreciate all of you who've decided to stop through our little world today. Tony is here.
Thanks, Tony.
Running things. He is the magic of the technical part of this show. He's also a content guy. He's really quite impressive. So it's great to have Tony here. And he's working, well, it's America. We all work like 5 jobs, 3 side hustles, babysitting, mowing lawns. Also,
I do to pay the grocery bills right now.
Yeah, exactly. The Angels games.
And then another hustle just for the gas.
I'm excited about a lot of stuff today on the show. Gary Dietrich, the political ninja, joins us bottom of the hour. Courtney, my better half, who is obsessed with true crime, brings another true crime story to us. That's at the bottom of the next hour. But wow, I got it up to my hips on Trump today, too. He is, I'm going to say he's flailing a bit. He feels as though he's, now, just because he's flailing, again, Democrats, I would not get that bounce in your step. It's a dead heat, and because of the twisted electoral college and that format that we follow in this country, it's a ridiculous holdover from another age. The fact that he's flailing may not reflect an inability to win the presidency, but nonetheless, the latest flails I will have for you in a moment. But first, a shout out to Romania Animal Rescue, Inc. Big shout out.
Big shout out.
They are regular supporters of the show, Romania Animal Rescue. And animals, of course, need rescuing all over the world. And if you go to their website, Romania Animal Rescue, Inc., maybe there is something there that you feel you may want to support. Their work may land with you, resonate with you. And I love the fact that they watch the show and they're regular contributors. And I love the fact, most of all, the work they do. So Romania Animal Rescue, a big shout out again.
Big shout out.
Appreciate the 20, and we are a crowdfunded show, so I appreciate that as well. Love the donors, as Ricky O'Bear says. Ricky O'Bear, who was early to the Mark merch when it first came out. Ricky O'Bear was all over it. Sent us pictures. He was great.
Big shout out.
Yeah. Love that. He also comments on videos, which helps us. The YouTube algorithm is something I'm just still learning. Mm-hmm. And interaction and comments on videos, that all is something that's important as well. So, but a big shout out to those of you who do support us with super stickers, super chats, and are part of our world. If you've not made it to get any merch, the pot holder, I still feel, is the head of the parade. I love that pot holder.
Where are my weed smokers at?
It's not that kind of pot. It's for the holding of a hot item in the kitchen. You can see it there hanging in our virtual kitchen. It was literally couldn't keep it on the shelves when we first offered this. And I don't know where it is now. But getmarkmerch.com if you want to get any of our merch. We don't make a lot of money on the merch. It's just one of those fun things. But we do like getting it out there. And we make a little something, so it helps keep the lights on here. There it is, getmarkmerch.com. So jump on there, pick yourself up a little something for the holidays. Is there a holiday coming up, Kim?
It's never too soon to start snapping up your Christmas items.
I think also celebrate for Labor Day. You know what I mean?
Oh.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. A little Labor Day gift. Let's make America Labor Day gifty again. That's all I'm saying. Show. Why does it have to be Christmas? Labor Day gift. Thank you. Yeah. Well, I'm excited to share a lot of information with you. I can only hope that I get to a lot that I've planned. Much of it has to do with the former president, who is locked now in a dead heat with Kamala Harris. or as the right calls her, Kamala Harris, because they like to deliberately F her name up because it's a little way of subtly trolling her. But the back and forth around the debate is the latest in this bizarre world of a Trump-Harris. And the conversation has all the earmarks, in my judgment, of someone who is doing a couple of things that are typical of the former president. So without any further delay, please take your seats, everyone. Put your seat back in the upright and locked position. This is a chunk of Trump.
Open wide.
Ready?
Here comes your chunk of Trump.
It's my favorite food.
With your first bite, here's Mark Thompson.
I have a feeling it's going to be beautiful.
Well, beautiful it may be, as Donald Trump starts to make noise, and when he makes noise, he really makes noise, about the upcoming debates. Now, I say debates plural because there's been talk of more than one, but the one that was agreed to when Joe Biden was top of ticket for the Democrats, that debate is coming up September 10th. There was no sign that that debate wasn't going to happen. There have been rumblings of one sort or another that, will Donald Trump still honor that obligation? Will Kamala Harris still honor her obligation to it? I mean, it was an agreement made by the Biden people and the Trump people initially, and so it's through that door that both parties, I'm talking about Kamala Harris and Donald Trump, through their people, are trying to, if not erase the debate obligation, change the debate obligation. There's talk now about changing the muting of microphones, for example, in the debate.
Oh, no. Don't change that rule.
Well, interestingly enough, it's the Harris people who want that rule changed, supposedly.
Maybe they know it makes him look like a total ding-dong.
They want the ability to, they say, to challenge the former president and his lies and misrepresentation in real time. Now, that might be its own kind of rugby scrum of people talking over each other, but in any case, whatever their strategy might be, that's one of the things they've talked about. But Trump, for his part, has posted over the weekend an angry post that reflects his reluctance to do the debate on ABC. You have it, Tony? The post looks like this. It's long. I'll read a bunch of it. I watched ABC fake news this morning. Both lightweight reporter Jonathan Karl, his ridiculous and biased interview of Tom Cotton, who was fantastic. Okay, well, Tom Cotton, and I saw the whole show, by the way. I happened to watch this ABC This Week show. Tom Cotton is slinging it for Trump. He's a great surrogate for Trump. I mean, if you're a Trumpy, Tom Cotton is great. He's a despicable guy. His politics are despicable. But and his spin on Trump, et cetera, is definitely what you'd expect from a surrogate. So, the show, I didn't realize, could so clearly get under Trump's skin like that. Go ahead, back to the post, if you would, please, Tony. So Tom Cotton was fantastic, and their so-called panel of Trump haters, well, first of all, they're not the so-called panel. They're the so-called panel of experts, you can say, actually Trump haters. I mean, you could edit a lot of Trump's posts, is what I'm saying. I ask, why would I do the debate against Kamala Harris on that network? Will panelist Donna Brazile give the questions to the Marxist candidate like she did for crooked Hillary Clinton? Will Kamala's best friend, who heads up ABC, do likewise? Where is little, L-I-D-D-L-E, George Stephanopoulos?
Slopadopoulos, I believe.
Oh, Slopadopoulos, thank you.
Yeah.
Where is he hanging out now? Will he be involved? We've got a lot of questions to answer. Exclamation point, exclamation point, exclamation point. Why did Harris turn down Fox, NBC, CBS, and even CNN? Stay tuned, he says. Okay. So, obviously, Donald Trump is, you would say, concerned, anxious, worried. On some level, Donald Trump and his post reflects an anxiety about those who are doing the debate, the place he's doing the debate, the forum, and how he may perform. Ronnie says he wants to go to Fox News or the other right-leaning media outlets. He knows he will get easier treatment on them. You can say that, Ronnie. I'll tell you something. I don't think you could ask for easier treatment than he got on ABC the last time. He was essentially allowed to fire hose out a bunch of lies. They were never challenged by any moderator. No moderators really cut him off. Joe Biden was the one who melted down the last time. There was literally no guardrail on that debate, as it's called. It's an actual TV show, of course. It's not a real debate. There was no guardrail on Trump. If I were Trump, I'd say, let's do it exactly like we did last time, man. It's great.
Yeah.
And when you are responding to someone like Trump, like he's had 2 minutes to lay out his BS. I mean, I'm talking about facts completely invented, claiming credit for things that are just not true, claiming things about the current administration that are just not true. When you've had 2 minutes of one lie after another, and then it's your turn, Kamala Harris, you have to decide what lies you're going to call out and what lies you're going to let pass. I mean, they're just, as I say, there's so many coming at you. Right.
What did they say? He is the Olympic champion of lying, right?
I mean, he is a gold medalist. And so you have to somehow decide and establish a strategy as to how to handle that. So back to the point, ABC was a great home for Donald Trump. You know what this is? This is what Donald Trump and his people do better than any other political campaign or strategist that I can think of in the last 40 years. They work the refs. They work the refs like crazy. This is unfair. We're going to get unfair treatment. The media's out to get us. This election is fixed. And what that does in this case is it puts the media back on its heels. It also sets a tone for if things don't go well, of course, because I'm in enemy territory. David Muir, these other people from ABC, they're out to get me. They've set up a situation that was designed to get Trump. This is the way he works the refs. And he does it effectively. I mean, to an effective end.
Yeah.
What else did I send you, Tony? Did I, is there anything else on the debate? Yeah, here it is. These are the details of the debate, just a minute or two from those things that are talked about as changes. But again, this is all from the Trump people working the refs. Go ahead, Tony.
Would you want the microphones muted in the debate whenever you're not speaking?
We agreed to the same rules. I don't know. It doesn't matter to me. I'd rather have it probably on. But the agreement was that it would be the same as it was last time. In that case, it was muted. I didn't like it the last time, but it worked out fine. They're trying to change it. The truth is they're trying to get out of it because she doesn't want to debate. She's not a good debater. She's not a smart person. She doesn't want to debate.
President Trump, how are you specifically preparing for the debate versus Harrison?
I'm not, really. I'm not spending a lot of time on it. I think my whole life I've been preparing for a debate.
All right, that's the way he prepares for everything.
Winging it.
Yeah, exactly, winging it. I mean, but I love that particular response always to how are you preparing for the summit with Vladimir Putin, with President Xi? I've been preparing all my life for it. I don't need any special preparation. I love that.
I have a question for you.
Mm-hmm.
At what point does the responsibility to know the facts fall on the American electorate? Should we be able by now to understand the issues to the point that we know a lie when we hear it?
This is a default position of yours that I've never really been able to understand, because I remember we've been around on this once on just talking to Trump generally, where you said, well, it's up to the American people to know whether it's no, it's not. No, it's not. The interviewer in an interview situation, it's different than a debate, to be fair, but in an interview situation, it's up to the interviewer to know and to press the subject of the interview. So in this case,
in a
it would be
debate,
Trump.
there is no interviewer.
Right, exactly. So to the point, in the debate, there is no interviewer who is empowered that way. In other words, you wouldn't ask a moderator to call out Trump. I thought that was a bad bust on the ABC people. They didn't call out Trump on any of his lies. That's not what a moderator is there to do. The moderator can push back a little bit at times, but the moderator with someone like Trump is not there to constantly put. Otherwise, at the end of the debate, you go, well, Trump was debating both Joe Biden and the moderator who kept calling him out on stuff. So it's just a bad look. A moderator is supposed to moderate. Is supposed to be a traffic cop. So when you say, is it up to the American people to know these things? No, it's not. I mean, there are many Americans, I would say the majority of Americans, who don't know a lot of these specifics, and it's no ding on them. They're busy trying to get the kids to soccer practice. So I am quite sympathetic to those who need these situations that sadly are kind of more show business than actual political discourse. They need whatever little bits of daylight there can be from these situations, because they can't be expected to know everything. He lies effectively. He's a really good con man. And by the way, politicians have always misrepresented things. They've inflated their records. They don't mention and omit typically a lot of things about their record or about positions they've had in the past. They moderate positions they've had in the past. They change positions. So you end up with, and I'll get to a Trump change in position in a moment, but you end up, I understand, with a view sort of like, well, all politicians lie. Well, again, even if I accept that general premise, there are degrees of lying. There are different kinds of lies. There are different kinds of misrepresentations. So sadly, you hope that there is a minimum amount of that, but there's always going to be some of it. I don't think it's incumbent upon viewers to know everything. Maybe they should have a buzzer during the debate that goes off when either candidate tells a lie.
Survey says?
Yeah. Remember, Kamala should spend all her time calling out Trump's lies. I mean, that's from Underdog. Again, I don't know if that's what you want to. I do think you need.
Can you let him finish, sir?
I think you do need to try to call them out, but I just don't know what that looks like when you're just sitting there trying to pick off Trump's lies. It can throw you off of your game. Right. Julie says you say it over and over again and people will believe you. That's precisely what the... now let me, on that. So in any case, last thing as we move on, I'd say Donald Trump is not trying to get out of this debate. I know that's the headline and that's what people are talking about, but Trump naturally engages in the Gish Gallop when debating, says Eric. That's exactly right, which is just the serving up of one thing after another where you're just lying, and it's just so much that you can't possibly be called out on it all. But what Trump is doing, as I say, is working the refs and setting up an excuse for not doing well in the debate. He is not trying to get out of the debate. The debate is something he needs. When you are trailing and trending down, now admittedly it's a dead heat, but he is trending down and your message is not getting out, there is no way you wave off an immense media event like this, again, in quotes, debate, TV show, that will give you so much of a platform. He will be there. He will do it, almost regardless of the ground rules. But he's working the refs. And the refs are not only the media, the refs are the public. The refs are us. No one lies like Trump, says Rosie. Well, there's that anyway. Congratulations, Mr. President. Yeah. There's never been anything like it.
There's never been anything like this.
All right. Now, on that, it's interesting that one of our posters here in the comments section mentioned what Trump's basic ethic is when it comes to saying something over and over and it becomes truth. You have the Alina Habba stuff where she's sitting there in the room talking about what Trump had told her when she was handling comms for the White House. She was the communications assistant communications director or communications director. Go ahead, play this and you'll see what I mean.
What I want to tell you is somebody who knew him very well and spent a lot of time. The worst things you have heard are only scratching the surface. This is an unprecedented moment that we are in. There has never been, now granted, we're some of the more vocal former Trump staffers, but he has been denounced by all of his most senior staff, something we've never seen in modern American history before. Multiple White House chiefs of staff, multiple secretaries of defense, his former national security advisor, his former White House communications director, people who saw him in the most important decision-making environments have spoken to the fact that he is unfit and that he poses a threat to democracy. And people need to wake up to that.
I thought the lie thing was that he had told her, just say something over and over. And even if you know it not to be true, and it will begin to take on a truth. He made that point to her in the White House as communications director. The other thing I saw today, or over the weekend, I should say, was it's been such an eventful weekend. I'll get to RFK Jr. with Gary Dietrich when he joins bottom of the hour. The other thing I saw that was on this tone, though, related to Trump and former staffers and those who are in his cabinet, was from H.R. McMaster. I should tell you, I don't like H.R. McMaster. I think he's a very knowledgeable guy, smart guy out of Stanford right now. But his general disposition is one that favors a re-election even of Donald Trump. And somehow this delusional notion he has, which runs afoul of everything he says, and you're about to hear from him in a moment, it runs afoul of all the stuff he talks about with Trump, that he's easily manipulated, that he doesn't know really anything, and is prone to make the wrong decision because he's working with such a shallow knowledge base. I mean, really a zero knowledge base, and he's easily manipulated, and people can just compliment him, and all of a sudden he's in their throes. So at the end of all of this, he goes, and he even writes this way, and you'll even see in the interview you're about to hear a little clip from, how he shades it, though, to allow himself the support that he's going to throw behind the former president. And that reflects a desire on the part of the right to regain executive power. I mean, the power of the executive, that is to say the presidency. They want to regain it. They don't care who the guy is that serves as president. There's no way you could look at Donald Trump objectively, look at all those deficiencies that H.R. McMaster actually lays out in his book, and still somehow say, yeah, that's the guy who I feel would be a fine chief executive for this country. I mean, there is a cognitive dissonance there, but it can only be explained one way, which is we must gain the presidency. We must have that power. And after that, it really doesn't matter who the guy is. Let him go play golf, and we'll handle reshaping America. Here's H.R. McMaster from Face the Nation this weekend.
You detail specific examples of China's Xi Jinping, Vladimir Putin, even Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu manipulating Donald Trump. And you saw it as it happened. You wrote that Trump's lack of historical knowledge made him susceptible to Xi Jinping's efforts to generate sympathy. So what is the scenario you fear that in a second term, Donald Trump pulls U.S. troops out of Asia, or that he brokers a transaction to give up Taiwan?
Right. Well, I write in the book, Margaret, about this dissonance, that Donald Trump carries with him, these opposing ideas that sometimes he finds it difficult to reconcile. And that's why I think it's important that he has a competent team around him to help him identify his own agenda. I mean, the story in At War with Ourselves is in large measure my effort to guard his independence of judgment, because in any administration, there are people who try to manipulate a president into decisions. They don't want to give a president options. What my experience was during that first year and a period in which we put into place a lot of these big shifts in policy is if you give him best analysis, if you give him multiple options, it's in the comparison of those options that he can consider the long-term costs and consequences and make sound decisions. Also in the book, though, Margaret, I write about at times, he finds it tough to stick with those decisions. Yeah. Because people know kind of how to push his buttons, especially buttons associated with maintaining the complete support of his political base.
Manipulate him. You also wrote a specific example where Trump wrote a flattering note to Vladimir Putin in 2018, and it happened to be the same time that this poisoning had happened on the soil of a U.S. ally by Russia.
Right.
When you got home, you said to your wife, after a year in this job, I cannot understand Putin's hold on Trump.
Yeah.
How do you explain that now?
Well, I explained it in the book. I try to place the president's belief that he could have a good deal with Vladimir Putin in context of the two previous presidents who thought that they could have a good deal with Putin. But also, President Trump, and people know this, he likes big splashy deals. He was pursuing that with Putin. He was pursuing that with Xi Jinping. Mm-hmm. And of course, Putin is the best liar in the world. And so I struggled, Margaret, should I write about how Putin tried to manipulate President Trump or not? And I thought, well, Putin knows how he was trying to do it. So maybe in writing about how Putin was trying to press Donald Trump's buttons, that will make a future President Trump, if he's elected, less susceptible to those kind of tactics.
Because he, on the campaign trail, argues these counterfactuals that Putin was afraid of him, that Putin wouldn't have invaded Ukraine if he had been president.
Well, he has a point in a couple of areas. In that first year of the Trump administration, I tell the story of how we imposed more sanctions on Russian entities in that 1 year than the previous 8 years of the Obama administration. And the really critical decision, though, Margaret, I think, was to provide the Ukrainians with defensive capabilities, especially in the form of Javelin missiles.
Right.
But in the area of inconsistency, I also tell the story about how that support was suspended, to get evidence of the Biden family's corrupt activities.
Yeah, in other words, that was the call you're talking about.
Which basically you're saying were
the Vindman testimony. That's good, Tony. Thank you. You heard it there. The way he softens the edges of the idiocy and the shallowness, the completely vacuous nature of Donald Trump. And so, sadly, look, man, I'm not looking for excuses to dump on Donald Trump. I wish he had been a more competent executive. I think we got exactly what we thought we'd get and what we talked about. But to hear McMaster, who, again, he has a great knowledge base, but he makes a lot of really bad decisions, I'd suggest, or he comes to conclusions that there can be legitimate disagreements about. But the thing that I think is really dangerous about McMaster and people like him is the way they so soft pedal and handle with kid gloves Donald Trump, because they know he's attempting to reascend to power. That's what I think you saw there. He was trying to get the truth out. He's clearly trying to push his book, but and there's nothing wrong with that. But what I would say is that he soft pedals, as I say, any kind of criticism of Donald Trump that really sticks. Was there anything else I had before I get to Gary Dietrich? Tony, what else did I send you? Anything? Tony? This is Sanders. I can wait on this. Let me get to Gary. And we'll do Kim's News top of the hour. So if you're just joining us, Gary Dietrich is our political ninja. We'll get to him in a moment. Top of the next hour, Kim's News. I have another chunk of Trump in a moment, and I'll close this one out in a second. The second chunk of Trump relates to, it's really juicy. It's not the political strategy as much as they're coming out of the woodwork with lawsuits against Donald Trump, some very high-profile lawsuits. I will share those with you in Chunk of Trump Part 2, which will follow next hour. But for now, that is your Chunk of Trump.
That's it for this edition.
Well, I really enjoyed it.
But make sure to join us again next time
I think you might want to listen. There's nothing wrong with listening.
for another Chunk of Trump.
The Mark Thompson Show.
All right, everyone. It is exciting to have you here. We love you in the chat if you're watching live. If you are not watching live, we read your comments after the fact. All of our videos break out within a couple of hours of the show going on. Is that what the schedule is, Tony? It's usually within a couple of hours, I think.
Usually around 3 o'clock. 3 o'clock is the posting time. They start going up.
3 o'clock is the time.
And they kind of
everything
stagger
goes
out. So, yeah.
Yeah, so
Around 3 p.m.
segments and conversations from the show, you'll hear that way. The show, of course, is up right away. You can watch our live show, which is on 2 hours live every day. It's from 11 to 1 Pacific time. That's 2 to 4 in the East, where you guys make all the decisions for the country. So I am looking forward to being here many days ahead, and we appreciate your support. Smash the like button like a boss.
With your iron rod.
Smash it with your iron rod. Now, Without any further delay, although, as you know, we do enjoy delaying on this show. This guy is the political ninja, the longtime political mind that showed up on KGO Radio, where really we were born, which is how we met Gary Dietrich. But now he's on the CBS television stations. He's the iHeart Radio political analyst. He's brilliant, and he is nonpartisan. He's Gary Dietrich, everybody. Hello, sir.
Hello, Mark. How are you doing today?
We are well, thank you. I hope you had a good weekend. Things are definitely heating up. I was mentioning in the last half hour that it looked to me like Donald Trump on the debate question, and we'll move on to other things that might be more pertinent. I do think Donald Trump will debate. I'll be interested to know whether you agree with me. But he is working the refs right now, right? He's trying to say this is unfair. ABC is a place where they don't like me. He is in a lawsuit with ABC, isn't he, Gary? It's sort of odd that he ends up there.
Yeah, well, I guess the lawsuit is specifically directed at George Stephanopoulos.
Right.
I don't try to keep those deals, but apparently that's what that's about. You know, I don't know if that's going anywhere. Certainly, I don't think there's going to be much noise about it prior to the election. As far as the debate goes, Mark, here's where we are with that. Of course, the ABC September 10th debate has been agreed to, but here's the rub. Interestingly, Trump had already agreed to the same parameters they had with CNN. And apparently the Biden team had as well. But when the Harris team came in, they have issued a fully different set of parameters. For example, remember what a big deal it was to the Biden team to have the mics muted when the time allotted for a candidate had expired. And the Biden team insisted upon that. And the Harris team now does not want that. They want mics open the entire time. Secondly, remember, they agreed on standing at the podiums. Okay, that was something that Trump said, we got to do it. We're going to. Okay, the Harris team wants to be seated. Thirdly, there was never any opening statements. And typically, opening statements have become sort of blasés. You know, most people find them absolutely useless because they're nothing but recitations of campaign talking points. And I tend to agree with that. I don't think opening or even closing statements are generally very useful to voters. But the Harris team has now insisted that there be an opening statement. And finally, remember, there was not to be any notes. There was to be a pen and a notepad and a bottle of water literally on the podium. Now, the Harris team has insisted, no, we need to ensure that both candidates have notes. So that's the facts as reported today, Mark. And whether both sides can agree on these four different parameters and maybe others, I don't know. I do think there is going to be a debate. What that's going to look like, yet to be determined.
Well, that was a very good summary of indeed what they've done, which is open the patient back up and decided to kind of move some stuff around potentially. They do feel like they're, as you've just sort of hinted when you say, I do think there'll be a debate, it does feel as though they're negotiating toward yes, right? Both parties have an interest in this happening.
Oh, yeah. I think it's absolutely not likely at this point that there won't be a debate. Why is that? Because if you're ahead by 10 points, of course, you've seen this all the time in politics, Mark, you don't debate, period, end of story. I don't care who the other side is, you know, whether it's Mickey Mouse or anybody, you're not going to do it because you don't want to risk a misstep. That's politics 101. I don't agree with that in terms of being beneficial to voters, but that is standard politics. The fact that this thing is now essentially a dead heat in most people's minds, there will be a debate. I can't imagine there not being one. Neither side wants to. It's that old thing about just like same thing with the federal budgets. You don't look like you were the one that caused the problem, right? So there's going to be a debate. There's probably going to be some back and forth. Where they're going to end up on these four parameters I talked about and maybe others, who knows? But I think clearly at this point, the Trump people have said, look, enough is enough. You insisted the same network, the same date. Now you want to change the parameters? No.
As an aside, Tony, do you hear a crackling with Gary? I'm seeing it now in the chat. People are saying that there's a crackling.
His
what
mic
is that?
It's that echo canceling clipping that the Apple stuff does because you're running Apple stuff, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
I run Apple.
That's why.
Is that
It's an Apple problem.
What? Oh, okay. And it's just coming that way through. It's after the show. Can we do something with Gary's stuff to avoid it in the
try,
future?
but it's Not really. I mean, the only way I think we can fix it is if he leaves and comes, because usually it's the echo canceling in the Apple stuff.
So let me just ask you this quickly:
so
if he leaves and comes back, you think it'll be
possibly?
Possibly. Gary, I know you hate to leave, but you do love to come back. Might that be a thing we could do real quick? Would you mind?
I'm happy. I'm happy to do it. If it's an Apple problem, you got to complain to Cupertino. That's what you need to do. You know what I mean?
It's true. Gary, indulge us. Jump out and jump back in, and then we'll continue this conversation. I want to talk
Happy
about
to do that.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah,
I want
it's
to talk
an Apple
about Georgia.
Chrome problem is what it is.
Yeah, but I blame you, Tony, because honestly,
Thanks, Tony.
I don't understand why you can't get this guy on cleanly, Tony.
Thanks, Tony.
I mean,
if we want to get real inside baseball, there's a button for echo canceling. If I turn that off, that usually fixes it. That's always fixed before with
yeah,
but it didn't work today.
Thanks,
it's
Tony.
worked before, but it hasn't worked today. So
well, I just don't know.
Sorry.
Well, Tony, what angered you?
Yeah, all right. I'm thank you.
Thanks, Tony.
Meantime, Spencer Jaffe, I've only been watching After Hours due to work. I only ask that the sane people do not get complacent. I still wouldn't be shocked if Trump won. Yeah, Spencer says that with a $10 super chat.
Big shout out.
Oh, that's the point I was making. I mean, it's obviously, if this was a popular vote, it was really the people's decision, then it would be different. But you can't get comfortable now. There's Gary back, and if it, it is what it is. But I want to get to a conversation about Georgia, where both candidates are today, and Georgia is not really in play for the Democrats, I don't think yet, Gary Dietrich. But you can tell me how it's possible that there might be something in Georgia for the Democrats. Can you speak to that?
Yeah, absolutely, Mark. I mean, the bottom line is the Harris campaign certainly wants everybody, including the Trump campaign, to believe that they are seriously contesting Georgia, and perhaps they are. Their rationale for that, of course, is what happened in these last couple of election cycles, right? And so they say, well, look what happened in 2020, we ended up winning Georgia. So, all the polling up until now, well, certainly when Biden was in, I mean, he was way behind in Georgia. Even now, Harris is behind, though by not nearly as much. So, and part of this, Mark, becomes the old political head fake. How much of this is an attempt to, quote unquote, in the modern parlance, expand the map? Well, but not exactly, not really, right? But we want you to think we're expanding the map because we'd love for you to dump $10 million there rather than in Pennsylvania, So it's hard to know sometimes exactly the internals on this for each campaign. I mean, I think that the Harris people are at least going to make a play, at least in these first few weeks post-convention. Everybody does this. They'll be reading the tea leaves in these individual battleground state polls every day, if not by at the end of every week, and they will be making, as we call it, resource allocation decisions accordingly.
Well, I think that's a really great point that you're making, and it's one that escaped me, which is even if the Democrats feel as though they don't have a chance to win there, spending time there forces the other side to allocate, as you've said, some of those assets and that money to media buys, et cetera, to essentially shore up that which they already should win. But again, everything is sort of in play. The latest poll tracker from 538 for Georgia puts Trump 0.6% ahead of Harris, with Harris on 46% and Trump at 46.6. So that's, right in the middle of the margin of error.
Right.
And so it suggests, anyway, that polling that, it's a little bit wide open. Lindsey Graham said, if we don't win Georgia, I don't see how we get to 270. He said that this weekend on one of the chat shows. I do believe Georgia's ours to lose, he said. It's really hard for Harris to tell Georgians that we're on the right track.
Yeah, so, well, and Lindsey Graham, by the way, is going to be actually campaigning for Trump in Georgia, his neighboring state, for that very reason. And, the thing about it is that Georgia has been seen as one of these states that sort of used to be written off, but now is considered potentially very purple. In other words, could go either way. And, when it comes to resource allocation, remember, it's not just money. An important component of that is candidate time. How much time are you going to devote to Trump being there, Vance being there, surrogates being there? Because that's a really big deal. Where you have rallies is typically the states that you believe are really the ones that are in play, because there's nothing more scarce in a campaign Anybody who, like me, who's worked on campaigns from legislative to presidential, yeah, there's money. Yeah, there's volunteers. Yeah, there's all that. The single most important asset you have is candidate time. And so that face-to-face in a state, if you're going to hold a 20, 30,000 person rally and then therefore garner all the local media, as you know, Mark, that's what happens at those things. All the Georgia TV stations come in. That's what you're after.
We had a candidate, and we're going to check back in with him in October. We had a candidate for congressional office representing the 7th seat in Georgia. They've redrawn those maps. So originally he went 6th district to 7th district. You know, it's one of those situations. But we were talking quite openly about the real problem Georgia has with disenfranchising voters. And when it comes to the vote in Georgia, their history is troubled, right, Gary?
Well, you know, you don't have to go any further back than the last presidential election cycle to talk about. I mean, Georgia's going to be one of those states that is clearly under the microscope for how they conduct their election, who actually, you know, votes. I can guarantee you right now, both the Biden/Harris team, you know, now those lawyers and that staff and all have been transferred over, and the Trump team, they already have lawyers dispatched, man. Remember that next month, early voting starts in a lot of places. You know, September, early October, there's going to be people casting ballots. So this isn't just a matter of the old poll watching on election day, November 5th. You know, how these ballots get turned in, how they get tabulated, you know, the so-called ballot harvesting, you know, it's taken on negative connotations, but it simply means, hey, can I help you, Ms. Smith, get your ballot turned in? You know, remember to sign the back of the envelope, all that. You know, all that's going to be scrutinized heavily, Mark. Yes, in Georgia, and frankly, in every one of the main 7 or so battleground states.
They have this Georgia State Election Board, and the idea somehow in Georgia, now this is also a template for other red states. Again, this is widely reported. There are essentially investigations going on around right-wing backed election activists who are already the idea is they're already setting the table for not certifying the vote. We touch on this, and we're going to touch on it again, Gary, so I hope you don't get tired of it. The idea somehow that by not certifying, you muddy the water sufficiently that neither candidate gets to 270. And when that happens, a whole list of other things happen that give the Republicans the upper hand. Again, the reason why I mention it in the context of Georgia is sort of head of the parade on this.
Yeah, I will be honest with you, Mark. I think, could the waters get muddied? Yes. I mean, let's go back to the old school days. If people remember things called hanging chads, okay? There are no more hanging chads to speak of, right? I mean, remember that? I mean, I'm just saying, you know, and even in that case, just in Florida, people don't know. Go ahead and look it up. 500 some votes, hanging chads. Okay, with the old punch card ballots and stuff like that. The thing about it these days is, you know, I think that the appetite, especially in the judicial system and, you know, amongst others, to have things, quote unquote, monkeyed around with and drug out and throw it to the House, because I think that's going to be on a short leash. I mean, the courts know this kind of stuff is coming. I truly have confidence that at the state level and the federal level, many of these law clerks are already drafting up procedures for this. How do we process these cases? How do we do it timely? Because ultimately, Mark, this is the bottom line. There are 50 separate elections conducted in the 50 different states. They are required, as you know, to turn in their electoral college vote. I believe that will happen. I believe somebody will get to 270, unless we get that proverbial 259. Now we got to do this. Let's not get into that now, okay? But I do think that we're going to see it. I do think there could be some monkeying around, but I would doubt that it holds things up to the point where, you know, come February, we're trying to wait for, you know, the smoke puff to come out of Congress like they do in the Vatican.
Well, that is the process to which Gary is referring, sort of obliquely. I mean, it's not it isn't. Maybe the smoke puff is all that's missing. It really is this bizarre dance that would involve a vote in the House, but and the vote is predetermined because they're just more red states. But I like hearing that. You feel as though, despite all the pearl clutching that we're doing, I'm a pearl clutcher on this one myself, and all the widespread reporting and journalism being done around these certification boards and the fact that the fix is already in, that you still feel it will essentially be a legit election. If one county in one state does not certify their ballot, asked John Watson, does that mean the whole state cannot certify its vote?
Well, all the votes have to be counted. So yes, could an individual county hang up the process? Yes. I mean, we saw that this last time, right? But the bottom line is going to be this. At some level, at some point in time, it's going to be, okay, Mr. or Mrs. Your registrar in this county or Secretary of State, the jig is up. Either give us the data and the court's going to rule on this or certify a vote. That's what's going to happen. I mean, eventually that will happen. And, I think, again, is there potential for people to, as you say, monkey around with things? Yes. But I really think now, having gone through this in as detailed a manner as we did 4 years ago, again, this is not going to surprise anybody. Even mark the legal arguments that will be presented. Those things have already been hashed out to a large degree. This is not going to be some, oh, geez, we got to figure what we're going to do for the next 5 years. I don't think that's going to be the case.
Well, there is a fleet of lawyers, as you suggested, on both sides, so that everything kind of is in place for the legal battle that will ensue. I really hope that there is a decisive enough victory, as you say, that one of the candidates gets to 270 and we're not sitting here with what could be, again, another unprecedented decision-making process on the part of the Supreme Court, Congress, etc. But I actually am buoyed by the fact that you feel as though it's going to go well. That does matter to me. You can find
Mark. I'll just say, can I say one more thing about that? I'm not exaggerating. I am sure the draft briefs are already stacked up and ready to go. I mean, they know what they know about all this stuff. They know the legal arguments on both sides. I have utter confidence, seriously, that there's legal interns and there's law school students and there's junior assistants that have already done initial drafts for this stuff. So I just want to tell you, don't jump off the cliff yet, Mark. Wait to do that.
Oh, no, I absolutely agree. In fact, there's been reporting on that there is that fleet of attorneys on both sides. So, and they're brilliant minds on both sides. So I hope when the dust settles, though, there won't have to be any cliff jumping. Gary Dietrich, you can find him across the CBS television stations doing political analysis. Also, I want to ask you, well, in our last minute here, I know I've got to wrap up, but RFK Jr., I think it's bizarre. He offered himself to Kamala Harris. He offers himself to Donald Trump. Trump's a buyer, and now he's all in for Trump. Give me a word about that.
Well, I think RFK, to be honest about it, I think this stems to me, Mark, a lot out of the same kinds of arguments that Bernie Sanders and his people made when he ran against Hillary Clinton, that the DNC had a fix in, and it was, they were all on Biden. They were not going to let him run fairly. I mean, even Colonel West today, another independent candidate, has said the DNC has been doing everything they can to keep him off ballots. So this is, I believe this is going to be investigated, but I think this is the genesis of RFK's beef. Look, you DNC guys, you did everything you could to prevent my candidacy, not let me on a debate stage, not let me on ballots. And therefore, I won't call it a grudge, but I certainly think he wants his pound of flesh out of the DNC.
Well, I mean, you say that, and I think it's indisputable on Sanders, and I'm sure on these third-party candidates like RFK Jr. and Cornel West, and this kind of third-party candidate who was, I do believe, by the Democratic machine held down, just as on the Republican side, there was, hey, you're a Trump supporter or we will primary you, we will beat you, and your political career will end. So both parties, the machines exerted tremendous leverage. But that said, why do you offer your services to the machine, Kamala Harris, for a cabinet job in return for an endorsement, given what you've just said?
Yeah, I think that's the part that RFK is going to have to speak to in more detail. He has, and I won't take time to make his arguments for him, but that question is going to be asked in more detail. You know, I think he's given some rationales for that. We don't know yet whether he was going into Harris to actually barter for a job or whether he was saying, look, these are my beefs, and if you don't address them and let me get a chance to at least get to 270, right? Because he's just under that now in terms of the number of 21 states he's qualified in, you know, then I will take this action. So I don't know what was in his mind or where he's going with this, but I can guarantee you he's going to be asked those questions a lot in the next few months.
And the thing that he talks about is Donald Trump cares about American children getting healthy, about the American public getting healthy, about the environment getting healthy. I'm thinking, sorry, with all due respect, he does? I haven't seen anything in the way of policy or even personal remarks on such a thing from Donald Trump. But I think my friends, and there are a couple of them very highly placed in the RFK Jr. thing, which is weird because I try not to, I did talk to them over the weekend after this, and I try not to interact too much because I really think that he's kind of stepped off the curb a bit. But they say, watch how he will bring change to the Trump administration and he'll bring together the disparate political interests. That's what they're at least spinning this as of the moment. Those are people in RFK Jr.'s camp.
Well, I think the bottom line there is just like the Sanders people. They feel like, hey, you know what? You did us dirty. Everybody knows you did. You know, Wasserman out of Florida, all the stuff.
Sure.
But I think at this juncture, the RFK people, your friends included, are hoping for what Sanders has gotten, which is basically a seat at the table inside the party to say, look, you got to listen to my things. You got to listen about health care. You got to listen about guaranteed increases in minimum wage. That's what the Sanders people feel like they got out of that whole exercise, was a seat at the table to push their top 3 or 4 agenda items.
That's a great take. Maybe that is indeed what he wants, is just a little agency in everything. Gary Dietrich, again, across the CBS television network and stations, also on iHeart Radio. Love our time on Mondays, pal. Thank you so much. Gary Dietrich, everybody. Thanks, Gary. Right on. We got that crackle worked out. It was good. Him coming off and getting back on worked out.
It came back. It did come back.
Now I can't hear you, Tony. But yeah. I did want to mention, just because someone asked, what does the Kennedy family feel about RFK Jr.? I didn't want to take Gary's time by just reading a quote, but I can round it out by saying Carrie Kennedy, who is the sister of RFK Jr., ripped her brother. Yeah. This is the quote. I'm outraged and disgusted by my brother's gaudy and obscene embrace of Donald Trump, and I completely get out and separate and disassociate myself from Robert Kennedy Jr. in this flagrant and inexplicable effort to desecrate and trample and set fire to my father's memory. Again, that's his sister, okay? Oh, the daughter of RFK, obviously.
What I thought was interesting about that is she has the same, it's called dysphonia, this voice condition that he does. So this is it sounds like it's a genetic thing.
Yeah, it was a weird and almost eerie thing to hear her speak. It's a similar issue or the same issue. I think, this is the continuing with her quote, the stakes this November couldn't be higher, which is exactly why my whole family will be fighting so hard to re-elect Kamala Harris and Coach Waltz, who've been champions for values that my family has fought for years. Donald Trump is the polar opposite, she continued. He's a threat to most basic freedoms that are core to who we are as Americans. The right for women to control our bodies, the right to live in communities safe from gun violence, to love who you love. I think that Donald Trump is incredibly dangerous to us, she said. And I think what Bobby has done is anathema to everything. Not only what our family stands for, but what Bobby has given his life to. You know, he spent so many years out there, she says, working on protecting the environment. And that's the opposite of what Trump plans to do. That's what Kerry Kennedy said. And sadly, I think that's accurate. So,
The Mark Thompson Show.
That's a little bit of Trump at the top and politics with Gary, and we button it out with little Kerry Kennedy. Now, I do want to mention this. In the next hour, I have some big stuff. I have another chunk of Trump part 2, but this isn't about the debates, and it's not about Kamala Harris. This is about stuff that's happening in Trump world, and I include a couple of very high-profile lawsuits that are coming at him that are interesting and involve some high-profile people. Also, the final ratings are in on the conventions. I will share those numbers with you as well. And then also in the next hour, a complete departure from politics. I've got a couple of stories out of the Bay Area, which is where we were born. And investors buying up huge chunks of San Francisco. And of course, it's not quite working out so well. And True Crime Corner. We try to exploit your love of true crime on this show. The last half hour will have a true crime story from my other half, Courtney. I am taking questions from the audience before I move on to Kim's news. Does anybody have anything before
Smash it with your iron rod.
Okay, you can smash it. Smash the like button for us. If you're new, please consider subscribing. And when I say consider subscribing, I mean subscribe. It costs you nothing. You just click the subscription, hit the notification bell. You'll know whenever we're on with a new video. We don't bother you much with stuff. I think we're very respectful, and I think you'll like it here. And please feel free to interact with the show. That's what the great thing about this platform. So wherever you're listening, maybe you're listening on podcasts or across all major podcast platforms, please feel free to drop us a line. The Mark Thompson Show at gmail.com is the address. The Mark Thompson Show at gmail.com. That's how you reach us. Kim's news, and then we continue. Mark Thompson Show.
The Mark Thompson Show.
On the Mark Thompson Show, I'm Kim McAllister. This report sponsored by CoachellaValleyCoffee.com. Here comes the bus. It is members. Is the 2024 presidential race shifting into high gear this week. Both candidates are set to hit the campaign trail, with Vice President Kamala Harris and her running mate Tim Walz kicking off a bus tour in the battleground state of Georgia on Wednesday.
Did a wealthy investor buy that bus for her the way he did for Clarence Thomas?
I come from regular stock.
It's the same bus, same kind of bus.
No, it's not that nice of a bus.
Oh, it's not.
No.
It's not as nice as Clarence Thomas's.
I come from regular stock.
I see.
No.
Okay.
Former President Trump and his running mate J.D. Vance will also hold several events in swing states this week as well. But members of a House task force are in Pennsylvania today, and they are touring the site of the assassination attempt of Trump. The July 13th shooting at the Butler Farm show grounds killed one person, left Trump and two others injured. The bipartisan task force says it will be touring the grounds in an effort to not only understand what went wrong that day, but to ensure accountability and prevent such an incident from happening again. And you mentioned this already, but this is former President Trump now questioning why he should debate Vice President Kamala Harris on ABC News next month. The two are scheduled to take the stage on the network September 10th in Philadelphia. In a Truth Social post on Sunday, Trump said he watched an interview with Republican Senator Tom Cotton on ABC, which he called biased. He said the network held a discussion with a panel of so-called Trump haters. Some serious recalls going on under...
Yeah, go ahead.
Walmart is recalling almost 10,000 cases of this apple juice sold at its stores across the country. The batch of Great Value brand apple juice was found to have potentially dangerous levels of arsenic. Maybe not such a great value after all. The recall was originally announced by the FDA August 15th. The updated recall classification now to a more urgent level on Friday. So
Wow.
you have that sitting around, maybe don't.
That's a real recall.
Yeah, it sure is. Problem with the SAT test. It was canceled all over the place over the weekend.
What?
Yeah, a lot of people thought they were going to go take the test, and they walked in and found canceled signs everywhere, unfortunately. So this is across California, last-minute closures and test cancellations, leaving students concerned about college admissions now. According to KCRA3 in Sacramento, 10 testing sites across California announced Saturday closures: Big Bear City, Elk Grove, Mammoth Lakes, McFarland, Cardiff, Fairfield, St. Helena, and San Clemente, Turlock, and Rockland. While not all schools now require the SAT or ACT for admissions, the test does remain a critical component for many competitive universities.
Yeah.
So,
We have processes and protocols and standards.
Exactly. No, it's true. That through the years, SAT is all this pressure. You want to try to do well. Then they suspend it for a while, and they run back to it. But, man, that's tough, especially on those poor kids who are, sweating like crazy. And now they have to continue to sweat and, I guess, reschedule.
yeah, that's it. And a lot of times you have to go far from your home.
Oh, my gosh.
to
My
take the test.
my pal Jeff and his son, and they occasionally watch the show, they went to Palm Springs, I think. They live in Los Angeles.
Yeah,
To take the test.
So a lot of times, you have to book a hotel and go far from home, and then you get there and you find out canceled. Whoops.
Right.
Oh, well. Air taxis could be operating over Southern California as soon as 2 years from now.
Yeah, what could possibly go wrong?
This according to officials with Archer Aviation, who say they plan to operate state-of-the-art electric-powered aerial vehicles in Los Angeles.
God.
In time.
No.
They're
In time
going
for
to
the
do
Olympics?
it in time for the 2026 World Cup and the 2028 Olympics. Yes.
Oh, my God.
Company sources say Archer is planning to assemble a network across the LA metro area that will include takeoff and landing zones at LAX, at USC, in Orange County, Santa Monica, Hollywood, Burbank, Long
Oh,
Beach,
my
SoFi
God.
Stadium, Woodland Hills, and Van Nuys. So
It's
the future has arrived.
we just don't have enough things flying around. We need this too. There's just not enough in the air. The helicopters flying by, the planes flying by, the drones now. Every 14-year-old has drones. It's just, if I can just get off my lawn is what I'm saying. That's exactly it.
Are you saying you're not going to hop aboard a...
They do this to me all the time. I don't know what the hell they do it for.
They do. I am not hopping aboard anything, Kim.
You're not hopping aboard an air taxi to go from one venue to the next?
I am not. I mean, I don't know. I'll need to do some additional reading on it, but it seems, from a societally grand scale, meaning if you take a step back, it seems troubled as a plan.
Well, I don't know. I mean,
How many people can you fit on one of those?
I don't know. 4 maybe?
You
just
don't get it, do you?
I don't. You're right. I don't get it. Okay.
There was a time where my grandfather refused to use an ATM card. So this may be the moment where you're refusing to hop aboard the next thing. You're
Michael
not moving
McCullough
forward.
in our chat has just what I was about to say to you. So thank you, Michael, because you've anticipated it. We need a high-speed rail. Well, what I would say, and not the high-speed rail project, which I know is way behind and is seems like a boondoggle type thing, but I do believe that this is how we think. We think, I know, I'm going to get individualized helicopter type deals to take me from here to there, instead of actually working on a safe mass transit system. What you need is safe mass transit. You don't need necessarily this as a solution. Again, more freeways isn't the answer. Putting that money into safe, I mean, I would populate those mass transit vehicles with cops so that people felt safe and could actually use it, but that's what's really needed. But for now, if you need to take a personalized helicopter to wherever you're going, all right.
That's what I need. I mean, I think it sounds kind of fun. This is not so much fun. The Alameda County Fire Department now investigating after one of its firefighters was caught on video in this racist tirade posted on TikTok. The Alameda County Fire says the tirade was against a community member in San Joaquin County. The two had apparently been involved in a car crash in or around the city of Lodi. In the 4-minute video, the unidentified firefighter appeared upset about the crash and uttered expletives and racial slurs at the other person. As of last night, that video had more than 69,000 views on TikTok. Doesn't look like it's going to bode well for that firefighter. Yikes. Yeah. In Vallejo, something interesting. The police say they found a 10-foot-long python in a car that suspects ran from during a Friday night sideshow. That's fun. VPD was called to the intersection of Mare Island Way and Harbor Way just after 11 Friday night. They found about 500 vehicles participating in the sideshow. CHP Air Operations noticed multiple people inside of a Cadillac sedan pointing lasers at them and at the Vallejo officer's eyes. When the cops tried to stop the Cadillac, they say the driver sped off and led officers on a chase that ended in Hercules. It's where 4 suspects fled on foot, leaving the large reptile behind. All the suspects were eventually caught, with the driver now facing several charges, including a felony.
Wow. What a scene that was. Jeez.
What was that all about? What was that all about?
Can I get animal control out here for the giant python in the back seat?
Exactly. Bizarre.
Wow.
There's a reason that this place is fun.
I mean, what?
Much. Yeah.
There was a bald eagle thought to have been injured, but now he's just been deemed too fat to fly.
Oh, no.
Yeah, the
No.
Missouri Department of Conservation.
I'm a better looking person than Kamala.
I know. It's not you, sir. It was, I think it's an animal.
He's too fat to fly. Yeah, they recently captured this eagle at the Wilsons Creek National Battlefield, and officials say the bird was unable to fly after eating suspected raccoon roadkill. The bird was rehabilitated before it was released back into the park, but yeah, he was apparently quite a big one. You know?
Wow.
You know, people
Yeah.
make donuts and they make lots of things. It's all about the oil.
Yeah. Well, but I think the donuts are probably what did with the bird in this case.
I don't know,
I
Tony.
feel bad. I don't know how you get that weight down. I guess
they take you in and they put you on the diet, and then, you slim down and they release you.
I said, well, when you put it like that, it sounds very straightforward. They
Right?
should get Dr. Emil
Emil
Schulthausen the third in on that.
He went to Eagle Fat Camp. This is the way it goes.
Sure, why not?
The jersey worn by Yankees great Babe Ruth in the infamous called shot Game 3 of the 1932 World Series sold at a New York City auction house for a record-breaking $24 million.
Wow. I never would have guessed that high. Man.
It surpasses a Topps 1952 Mickey Mantle baseball card that sold for $12.6 million. Back in 2005, that same jersey worn by Ruth sold for $940,000, but it was only known as the one he wore on the road during the 32 World Series against the Cubs. Companies photo matched it in recent years and discovered he wore it in Game 3 when he pointed to the outfield while at bat and then hit a home run to center field, the infamous called shot.
Yes,
Yeah.
that's right, man.
$24 million. Can you imagine?
And what was it? It was purchased originally for a little less than $1 million. When was that?
That was in. Hold on. That was in 2005. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
So if you hung on to it for 20 years, man.
Pretty good investment.
Yeah, you're not kidding.
Yeah. I don't know what this is a picture of. Is this the?
That's
is
the
this
called shot. It's
Okay.
an artist depiction. No, it's not.
Okay, got it.
Now, there have been some old newsreels of the called Babe Ruth shot, or at least what's talked about as potentially the called shot, but I've never seen any irrefutable video evidence that he actually did it. But a lot of people talk about it, and it almost doesn't matter. The mythology is real, and the money that was, used to purchase the jersey is real.
$24 million. What do you do with it? You put it behind glass? You hang it up?
Yeah, you put it behind all kinds of security glass, etc. Yeah, you have to display it. I mean, you don't buy something like that without maybe even loaning it back to a museum of some kind. You know what I mean?
Sure.
It feels as though it's that sort of situation.
What is it called when you say something? It's almost like you're willing it into existence, like a power of positive thinking, where he points at the field and says, "This is where it's going. This is what I'm going to do." Boom, it's done.
Yeah, that's pretty. It's a Smithsonian piece, says Pietro. Yeah.
This
Yeah.
report is sponsored by CoachellaValleyCoffee.com. This morning, I pointed at the tea and said, "That's going to happen," and it did. Yes, it's
Just like the
just like
shot.
that. Yeah, that's right. They've got a huge selection of coffees. They have amazing teas. Really is quite the treat. CoachellaValleyCoffee.com. What are you drinking this morning?
I'm drinking espresso. I have like a long shot, and then
Nice.
so good. Dark, rich, black, like the universe at large. Nothing but potential. I love all the organic and from women-owned farms, the magic of Coachella Valley coffee, but it's not just coffee. They have loose teas, they have bag teas, they have truly a remarkable selection, and it is a boutique roastery, meaning they deal with everything personally. They hand roast all of their coffee beans. They get fresh crop. So everything you're getting, there's a reason that it's also very good. So yeah.
There's a reason that this place is fun.
Well, the fun part is that everything that you order on the site, you can collect anything you want there. Teas, coffees, get merch if you want. You'll get 10% off CoachellaValleyCoffee.com. Take the 10% off when using our discount code MARKT on anything and everything that you get at CoachellaValleyCoffee.com.
I'm Kim McAllister. This is The Mark Thompson Show.
They had to close down an entire radio station to silence him. And now, he's here. Ladies and gentlemen, Mark Thompson. Feel it in your soul. The Mark Thompson Show.
Oh, girl, baby girl, don't even play.
We'll do it live. I'll write it and we'll do it live.
I did everything right and they indicted me.
Put that coffee down.
I stand corrected. My words offend so many people. My bad. I'm sorry.
Y'all can all go to hell, and I'm going back to Texas.
Have you ever been a member of the Chinese Communist Party?
That was very inappropriate.
My beautiful Christians, I love you, Christians. I'm a Christian. I love you. I only like people that like me.
Put that coffee down.
There's never been anything like this.
Right on, everybody. Thank you for being here. Our Monday show. And on Mondays, we exploit the obsession with true crime. Bottom of the hour, Courtney joins us, and she has yet another story to tell out of the world of true crime. And I have one other important thing to tell you, and it's related to true crime. Early on in the entire accident with that super yacht, Courtney came to me and she said, "This is no accident. What happened here points to a legit murder." Now, I've pushed back on this. I've said I don't see necessarily who'd be motivated to murder this guy. And then she points to the other defendant, again acquitted, along with the CEO, both of whom were tried in America. They end up leaving the country after being extradited there for trial. And they both die within a week of each other in two truly freak accidents. Now, when I presented that to David Katz, David said, "Mark," and he told all of you, he said, they don't, HP didn't kill him. They have big lawyers to, that's the way in the corporate world people are snuffed out. They're snuffed out legally. So Courtney maintains another theory, which I'll let her share with you at the bottom of the hour. but she was the first I'd heard that it wasn't the way it's being presented. No Contendo, with a big shout out to No Contendo, Dave Chappelle show, and black people wave. Well, I don't get it. Help me. Can you help me with this? Regarding Dave Chappelle's show, us black people wave
At Clarence Thomas?
C. Thomas. Oh, now I get it. Sorry.
Yeah.
In other words, you don't claim Clarence Thomas is what you're trying to say? No.
You just don't
I
get
didn't
it.
get it for a
You don't.
second. I didn't get it for a second. You're right. Now I get it. Dave Chappelle says, we don't claim Clarence Thomas. Yeah. So that's happening a little bit later this hour. I did want to tell you a couple of things. Then I will get to Chunk of Trump Part 2. And these are amazing facts. Have nothing to do with Kamala Harris. I'll get to all of that in a second. But first, I had a couple of stories. You know, this show is supported by so many people who live in the Bay Area. We were born out of San Francisco radio. We took the whole radio show here. That's how Kim is on the news and Albert is producing. And we have so many of the constructs that reflect our loyalty to the old KGO radio. And in that spirit, we look back at things going on in the Bay Area constantly, just because that's sort of our home base. And it's pretty wild what is happening. I mean, in San Francisco, we'll start. There is an investor who bought up a bunch of buildings in a neighborhood to, quote, improve the neighborhood. And now that this happened, and this is, by the way, it's the Upper Fillmore district, and that is near Pacific Heights. And even if you don't live in the Bay Area, that's like a really nice area. Pacific Heights, maybe the nicest area in San Francisco, where you'll find like Dianne Feinstein living there, Pelosi lives there. I mean, it's where people with money live, right, Kim? Please correct me on any of this.
Yeah, but it's interesting how close that can be to another neighborhood that isn't so nice.
That is true.
Right?
And that is America's cities generally, but it's certainly San Francisco. Apparently, the effort to buy into this neighborhood and upscale it has led to many of the businesses there that occupy the buildings that were purchased having to look at maybe not continuing there.
Oh, no.
When a mysterious web of connected limited liability companies started buying up building after building on a 3-block stretch of Fillmore, small business owners and residents in the area were hopeful that the infusion of capital could help buoy and revive the close-knit retail community that had been struggling since the pandemic. But months after the properties traded hands, the vision of Upper Fillmore's newest investor, again, this is in San Francisco where a lot of new money comes in, they want to make the neighborhood their own. It appears that the new investor's plan is coming into focus, and it does not include several of the mom and pop businesses that have anchored this street for decades. Earlier this year, these various entities, these limited liability companies, moved in, spent upwards of $40 million on acquiring more than half a dozen aging buildings on Clay, between Clay and Pine Streets on Fillmore, okay? This will mean something to the people who are in San Francisco, but all you need to know is that this is a neighborhood that probably did need an infusion of something, but it didn't need necessarily to have the small businesses flushed out. The defunct Clay Theater on Fillmore included in that. So more, however, shuttered storefronts, it's being suggested, will be the thing that you'll see in the short term, because long-time small businesses are considering and actually are leaving the area. The investor said to be behind the tangle of different shell companies is reportedly on a quest to revitalize the area, which, like other parts of San Francisco, has yet to fully recover from the pandemic downturn and has seen commercial real estate values plummet. Vacancies have risen. As a result, many of the street's landlords, particularly those with deferred maintenance on their properties, are eager to sell. So these guys come in these big coalitions of investors, and they change things. But some are asking the longtime tenants to vacate. And many of the owners of these buildings that are trying to sell are asking the small businesses to vacate before they sell, because that makes the building more attractive. There's no existing tenant necessarily. You can do what you want with the building. While the exact details of their larger plan for the area have not been disclosed, some businesses who've been part of the community for decades say they are being forced out of the area. That's part of what's going on in San Francisco. Meantime, in the South Bay part of San Francisco, I mention this because, again, San Francisco is this vast area. Morgan Hill, there's a dude who is transforming his property into a pirate-themed spectacle, welcoming the public in.
That's fun.
Yeah, it's a fun thing. He's transformed his front, side, and backyards into a pirate-themed paradise. We're showing it to you right now. It's complete with an almost life-size pirate ship. It's my passion, he says. I would think so. And he purchased the property on the corner of Morgan Avenue and Hill Road and started to remodel his backyard, going for a tropical island feel. We went to see Pirates of the Caribbean, and all of a sudden, he said, I want that. I was just like a little kid in a candy store, and that's what he's done. I'm waiting for the neighbors to push back on him, Kim. Is that going to something that's going to happen? Look at it.
No.
Tony is showing you. It's like a theme park in his backyard.
It's beautiful. It's kind of cool. He was working on that for 12 years. And from what I understand, he just passed away. His name was Rich Ferrato, and he died August 23rd at the age of 64.
Wow.
Yeah.
Is that right?
Mm-hmm.
That's sad. But
Yeah.
he did see his dream come together.
He totally did. Yeah.
He's had no plans and continues to have no plans to ever, meaning that he's, I guess, told his heirs, no plans to ever charge an admission to Morgan's Cove, as it's called, but does hope to get an historical designation so generations can come and visit, learn, and enjoy, he says. That's a little of what's going on in the world of Morgan Hill. Kids seem transfixed and impressed by the pirate-themed spectacle. Congratulations.
The Mark Thompson Show.
Sad that he's not around anymore.
I know.
Kind of a bummer.
I'm sorry. Sorry to bring down the party there.
Yeah, it was really... Well, we'll circle back around to maritime news when we talk about that super yacht going down, because now Courtney was proven right. She said, I smell something bad there. That's not what it seems. And now there is a murder investigation that has been opened into that entire situation.
I trust her murder sense. I trust her crime sense.
She does have a feel for it. All right. Tony, I'm going to do it now. It'll be part 2. Chunk of Trump.
Open wide.
Ready?
Here comes your chunk of Trump.
It's my favorite food.
With your first bite, here's Mark Thompson.
I have a feeling it's going to be beautiful.
Looks as though Donald Trump is afraid of someone, and it's not Kamala Harris. It's Taylor Swift.
Oh, I thought, wasn't he calling her beautiful, and she's a beautiful woman, and...
He called her a lot of things, all fairly complimentary, I believe.
Yeah.
He knows she's a powerful person who can influence people's decisions, potentially. Well, there were AI-generated images of Taylor Swift, as you may be aware, that were shared on Donald Trump's social media account. The AI-generated images of Taylor Swift suggested that she was endorsing his campaign. And now he's saying, I didn't know anything about those, and I don't want anything to do with them. Specifically, he said, all
he
I know...
reposted them. Look at it. Tony's I got the post up. Trump reposted all of it.
Of course. But now he is denying it. So
I've never seen anything like it.
Yeah, all right. One fabricated image shared by Trump of Taylor Swift has her clad in red, white, and blue, posing like Uncle Sam. You see it there before an American flag, emblazoned with the text, "Taylor wants you to vote for Donald Trump." And Trump captioned that image, "I accept." He also posted Swifties for Trump and a number of other AI-generated images. Well, as you are aware, Taylor Swift and her people are what? It's
Mad.
a ding word, and it involves the courts. The word is litigious. Yes. And so Trump is backpedaling from this. And as Kim says, notwithstanding how complimentary he's been, he is concerned about being sued. Meantime, he was sued by Isaac Hayes' estate. That's right. Donald Trump used the music of Isaac Hayes in an unauthorized way. "Hold On, I'm Coming," a 1960s song originally performed by Sam and Dave. It was used by the Trump campaign more than 100 times, and the Isaac Hayes people filed suit against Trump. They were asked before the suit was filed. This reminds me of the Mar-a-Lago documents, where they ask him for the documents first, then they ask him again for the documents. "We're missing some documents. Are you sure these are all of them?" Before there was any raid on Mar-a-Lago or search of Mar-a-Lago, they asked politely, and that's what the Isaac Hayes people did. They asked, "Can you stop using 'Hold On, I'm Coming'?" What is this? What is this, Tony? I can't see it. Is this...
This is his kid, Isaac Hayes III. Says breaking federal court granted a request for an emergency hearing to succor injunctive Donald Trump.
Oh, good. Oh, so this is the injunctive relief. That's from Isaac
Atlanta
Hayes'
CU
kid.
court.
Thank you. Okay. I didn't know we had that. I guess we didn't have it before, but now we do. The RNC, Trump for President, Incorporate, Turning Point, and the NBA, and the NRA are required to appear in court. Yeah. So what's happened is they asked politely, and then they took him to court when the Trump campaign didn't respond to the request to discontinue the use of that song. And so on the anniversary of Isaac Hayes' death, Trump used it again in a Montana rally, and they then went to court. In fact, the same guy who posted that, which you've just seen, says, "We'll deal with this very swiftly." And so, yeah.
I don't understand why they don't just call and ask the artist before they do it. Because it's more embarrassing when the artist comes out and says, "Knock it off." Right? Why didn't you get permission ahead of time?
Well, remember,
I mean, I'm sure they're of the... What's that? What's that, Tony?
Lots of times the artist has no say. It's a publishing company they go through, and that's it. Because the artists
That's a good
lots of times
point,
don't own
too.
their songs.
Yeah, but I guess in this case,
That's what the Foo
artist...
Fighters thing.
What was the Foo Fighters thing?
When he played when RFK came out, Foo Fighters like, "We didn't get the permission." It's like, well, we went to a songster I forget the name of them. Like,
Oh, yeah,
we
they
bought
just-
it there.
right.
So
Thanks,
remember,
Sonia.
the publishing companies are above the artists. So
Outside the Desert Diamond Arena in Friday afternoon's 104-degree heat, there were those lining up to get a seat inside to see Donald Trump. It's one of his rallies. Gotta love those rallies. Everybody's dressed up. They're all trumped out. MAGA Mickey is there with his call for support.
Trump 2024!
Yeah. More than 100 prospective rally-goers did not get in. Instead, they got a seat in the shade outside the arena, where the Glendale Fire Department said they were mostly treated for heat-related injuries from waiting online in the heat. A couple dozen of those people were taken to a nearby hospital for further treatment. A volunteer with the Trump campaign said that they didn't have any comment on things. They were happy to see people lining up to get in to see the president. Some attendees said they waited hours to get into the building or decided to give up and head home. And some said that the line, and there it is, Tony is showing it to you now, it was a mile long.
Wow.
One person said it has to be a mile. And after seeing how long the line is, we decided to turn around and go back to Casa Grande. Heat-related hospitalizations, as you know, have been common in Arizona and have even been more common at Arizona Trump rallies this summer. 11 people were hospitalized during the Republican presidential nominee's last visit to the Valley. And free water was scarce on Friday. Attendees could purchase cold water from private vendors who also sold Trump hats, jewelry, and other merchandise to those waiting. It's an opportunity when you see that long a line for people to get in to sell them both water and merch. And so that's the other side. You can see that not everything is we're going to win and it's all looking up in Trump land. And finally, I share this with you, the final night numbers. The Democratic National Convention got 26.2 million people across 15 networks to the RNC's 25.4 million across 14 networks. So every night, that means, this is the final night number, every night the Democrats had more viewers and those connecting with the event than did the Republicans. Now, again, it's not a trouncing. It's about 1 million people more on the final night. But it's also above 2020's 24.6 million for DNC Night 4. And about 72% of the audience was 55 years of age or older. The final night skewed a little bit younger. 18 to 34s showed up with their biggest numbers on the final night, 1.4 million. But most of the convention stuff appeals to people who are, I'd suggest, older, based on these numbers, I'd suggest it, and potentially more engaged. That is your chunk of Trump.
That's it for this edition.
Well, I really enjoyed it.
But make sure to join us again next time
I think you might want to listen. There's nothing wrong with listening.
for another chunk of Trump.
The Mark Thompson Show.
What is it, Courtney? You just come into the studio? What is it, Courtney?
I was rudely trying to interrupt. I was going to add that, I'm my thoughts on the last night of the DNC was that there was this huge rumor that Beyonce and Taylor were going to perform.
Oh, that's right.
And I think in many ways, I think in many ways that might have affected the younger.
No, that's a good point.
Cohorts or audience.
I never saw Courtney go to the set to watch anything political. That doesn't mean she's on top of it, but she gets it in other ways. But she was there watching the big screen with me, and I just thought it was weird. I said, she said, well, they're saying all over TikTok that Taylor or Beyonce is going to be there. Yeah, well, so maybe that brought more boys to the yard, maybe.
Yeah. I don't know for sure, but it was certainly everywhere. You had people tracking Taylor's plane and sort of the conspiracy ideas around like they used Beyonce's music when they were the pre-program and sort of testing the audio. So it was quite a blaze on TikTok that this was going to happen, and I thought maybe that might affect the younger numbers tuning in for that last night.
No, I think you're absolutely right. I didn't even think. I didn't remember that. It's truly the case that I think a lot of people,
which I think actually harmed them in the end a little bit. I would say just because people were, as I know it, younger people were bummed, right? That
well, they might have been bummed, but you can't blame. Peak. I mean, you can't blame them for that.
No.
I'm seeing this in the chat, which is, I think, a good point, that somehow heat-related issues and heat-related deaths doubled since 2000. It's a fact that I think more people died from heat-related issues than ever before in the last year in America. And there's dangerous heat, I believe, coming back this week, right, Kim?
Yeah. As a matter of fact, we're going to get triple digits, they say, in the Bay Area. That it's gonna be a noticeable difference. We had rain over the weekend, which was interesting. So.
How do you liberals stay cool in the Bay Area?
It's hard. It's really hard.
What?
It's hard out here for a live.
You just wave your political correctness toward your face, and it circulates enough air. Is that how you
count
guys
on the
do it?
wokeness to get us through?
Yeah, exactly. Dangerous heat and humidity spreading across the central and eastern United States. Again, across the red states. All of a sudden, maybe, because everything has politics now, red and blue, so let's just define it that way. So central and eastern U.S. this week may break records for high temperatures and end a spell of fall-like weather. And this is, of course, coinciding, just to, again, put a fine point on the politics of it, with a lot of visits to the South. Everybody's in Georgia today. The heat will bring unseasonably hot temperatures to the upper Midwest and Mid-Atlantic region. And as Kim says, into California as well. I'm tempted, Courtney, to go right to your segment. Are you prepared?
Am I prepared? Of course.
We laugh at you.
I only spent 10 hours researching this story over the weekend. But no, but if you want to do news, I'm here.
No, it's not that. It's that I have another, we're going to do your segment, but I already pitched the fact that when it comes to the super yacht going down, Courtney has done research on this and has arguments as to why she feels this was potentially a case of murder. And for that reason, I'm going to lead with that in True Crime Corner, and then you can segue to whatever you have. But as you know, America is obsessed and has, I'd suggest, an unhealthy love affair with true crime, but can't seem to kick it. So we're exploiting it. My other half, my better half, adores true crime even more than she adores me. That's true. Okay, you don't need to agree with it. Now we give her her own segment. This is True Crime Corner.
Let's pay a visit to Mark's True Crime Corner.
This is not a good neighborhood. I'm scared.
Now, here's your host, Mark Thompson.
Well, Courtney is our guide through true crime. Welcome, Courtney.
Hi. Yes, thank you for having me.
Courtney, before I get to whatever case you have today for us, whatever story there is, you were quick to identify this Bayesian yacht, super yacht situation where it was toppled and with this water spout, et cetera.
Yes.
You were quick to identify that as something that you felt needed further investigation. You felt that people were too quick to suggest somehow that this was a natural series of coincidences. Can you speak to this briefly? And then I'll just tip this. Authorities apparently agree with you because there has now been a murder investigation that has been opened on this issue of the super yacht.
Yes. Well, when I was reading about the accident that happened with the yacht, I was intrigued because it's a $20 million yacht. And so it would be hard pressed for a weather incident to completely sink it. And then when I heard that the co-defendant of Mike Lynch was killed just days before this incident with the yacht, to me, it seemed natural that there was not a coincidence, but in fact, these were planned.
Mike Lynch is the CEO who was killed on the yacht.
Yes, of Autonomy. Now, I do not think it was Hewlett-Packard. That's not what I'm saying. But perhaps there are other issues of fraud or whatever else that would warrant this. There were also so many people on that ship associated with this fraud. There was the chairman of International, JP Morgan. There was his attorney for the case. So, and all of the crew made it out with the exception of the chef. So 7 people passed in this incident, and one of them was a crew member. Now, I have seen a lot of stories come out from when I first mentioned that this was not a coincidence, which was Monday, I believe, of last week. I've now seen a lot of stories out corroborating what I said. And I know that I bring it up to you Haley to remind you that I was the first person to identify this, but that is in fact now somewhat maybe slightly more legitimized, or it's now being investigated as a manslaughter.
Well, Quesadilla 79 says, were they Boeing whistleblowers who were killed? Karen, though, says this. The Italians apparently open a manslaughter investigation as a formality, much like an inquest, she says. Let's leave that, be that as it may, for the second, because you were making, I thought, a substantive point, in addition to stitching together some of these things that might be circumstantial, you might call it an eerie coincidence, but as you say, a lot of people who were directly involved with this case, recently acquitted, they were killed, and you wonder about that. But you did mention some specifics, one of which was, I thought, the mast itself, this immense mast, extended all the way down to the base, the hull of the ship, which is not typical. And it's one way in which you can essentially insure against the vehicle, the boat being toppled.
Yeah, exactly. And the way that the ship is built, a water spout would not sink the ship. And because of the way, again, that the mast is built, it creates there's a stronger foundation of it within the hull of the ship.
Yeah, it's stabilized that way. Now, my question also is about something else you mentioned, which is the opening of portholes, which was found to be the case. Can you speak to that?
Yes, portholes were open. There are some people that are alleging that in fact contributed to the sinking of the ship. Other people are saying that there had to be some kind of damage or vulnerability created in the hull of the ship to sink the ship. But the manufacturer of the ship, the CEO of the manufacturing company of the ship, was public this past week to say this is an unsinkable ship, and that in fact a weather incident such as this would not have sunk this ship. So there wasn't much time to get out, as we've heard from some of the survivors. So it happened very quickly. But in fact, 6 of the 7 people who perished in this incident were in fact the guests. And 5 of them were huddled in areas where there was thought to be air pockets. And then the daughter of Mike Lynch was in fact in her cabin. So I'm not sure that there was it's all speculation. So
the yacht's chef, as you mentioned, was killed along with Mike Lynch, the 18-year-old daughter. The other victims were the Morgan Stanley International director, Jonathan Bloomer, prominent American lawyer, Chris Morvillo, and both of their wives, Judy Bloomer and Neda Morvillo.
Yes.
Chris Morvillo, a partner at Clifford Chance, was involved in successfully beating the U.S. in that fraud case. That's what this was all about. The last thing, and then I would like to move on, is that those people lost their lives, but those to whom you've referred who got out, captain and crew, they are the subjects of this manslaughter investigation or inquiry, as Karen has sort of suggested it is?
As I know it, yes. So anybody who was on the ship or had to do with anything around this trip with this ship would be involved in that. So.
Unsinkable.
Yeah.
Is what they said about the Titanic also. Says a couple of people have made that point.
Too soon.
So, too soon. Okay. Anyway, this is interesting, and please keep us posted on that, but that's not what has brought you here today, ma'am.
No,
okay.
I daily remind you of, I was early into this, and I know that you are
skeptical.
Yes, but you were more hesitant to call this and contribute to that sort of conspiracy theory that I was talking about. So we will see.
No, I'm skeptical that way. Like I'm skeptical. Some things happen and they are the way they look.
It's quite a coincidence, but yes.
Anyway.
So.
All right, Courtney. Without that's the maritime part of the offering. What do you have for us today?
Today, I have a case that takes place in South Africa. It has murder, it has suicide, it has contract killing, and it has secret gay sadomasochistic sex.
This is all
everything that's going to get you
demonetized.
demonetized.
Yes. Let me help you now, YouTube. Just take all the money that I ever make on this show from today.
So I want to mention that some people asked about the case Sierra Lemaire, and I'm working on that. But this case is, in fact, the case of Annie Dewani. And so I watched a show on Max, and it's called The Honeymoon Murder, and it features this case. And so the case is about a young woman named Annie. Her married surname is Dewani, but this is Annie. She's a young woman. She's from Switzerland, and she's working in Switzerland, I believe, but traveling to London, where she's met what she believes is the man of her dreams. If you go to the next visual, if you're watching, you can watch the visuals. And this man is named Shirin Dewani. And Shirin Dewani is a young millionaire. He's a millionaire before the age of 30. He works for his family's business. They do elderly care homes in the UK, I believe. And they meet and they fall in love. They're together about a year and a half before they get married. And they're together about a year before Shirin proposes to Annie, I believe, after a private flight to Paris, where he proposes to her in Paris. They get married in India. They have this gorgeous wedding.
No wedding like an Indian wedding.
I know. I think they spent 200,000 pounds. What is that, like $240,000? But it was a huge affair. And so they get married at the end of October in 2010. And they are going on their honeymoon. Now, Annie doesn't know where their honeymoon is. Shirin surprises her. And he chooses South Africa. And he says that's because Shirin and Annie are SNA, and that is why he's chosen South Africa. But he surprises her with this trip. Now,
he chose South Africa because those are the initials of their names?
I think also it's easy to find a contract killer, but that comes later.
Oh, I see. Okay.
I think that was part of the planning. But in fact, that's what he's telling people. But he surprises her with this trip. Now, throughout their relationship, Annie is writing to her family. She's very close with her cousins. So if you go to the next visuals, there's some text messages where throughout their courtship, she is communicating to her family some reservations she has about Shirin, about his family, about if he is the right one. But she feels pressure to get married. Her older sister is married with 2 adorable children, and Shirin really fits what she's looking for in a partner.
Okay.
And so she kind of looks past these early reservations that you can have.
But what we're seeing on the screen now is wish I never got engaged, everyone.
Yeah, exactly.
Tells me how fortunate I am. Even my designer tells me he's good looking and that I'm lucky.
So,
absolutely sick.
A lot of how lucky she is, he feels that way about himself. His family feels that way about Shirin. A little less support for Annie being such a prize and such a wonderful life partner. Now, but Annie's very close with her family.
His family is very high on him.
High on him.
But her family is very high on him also.
Yeah, they like him for her. I think that he fits what they would see as a good and stable life partner for her.
I see. Sort of the way your family feels about me, would you say? Or not so much, really? I'm just...
What?
I think,
anyway,
there may be some more reservations.
Okay.
But also, I mean, you're talking about a year and a half. I think after a year and a half, we were sort of barely formal in our relationship.
I don't know. I don't remember. The whole thing's a blur.
The next slide, again, is more text messages. These are, in fact, days before her honeymoon and then on her honeymoon. So days before, she's saying, I'm not happy. I don't want to be in this situation.
Well, she says a week later, her situation appears to have deteriorated. This is what's on the screen now for those of you who are listening on
exactly.
podcast. And she wrote, hate him, I am not happy. I mean, hate him, I'm not happy is not like, hey, this isn't working out. This is awful.
This is awful.
What shall I do? It's been one day and I feel exactly the same as I did before.
This is the first day of their honeymoon.
Oh, my God.
And then on the 11th, 2 days before her death on November 13th, she says, things are better. I really don't want to think about divorce, but I'll explain to you later. So it sounds like things might be slightly better, but neither of them are looking for a divorce. Now, in the next slides, there's a couple screenshots of some email messages from November 5th. So they got married October 29th. These emails are from November 5th, and they were on their honeymoon as of November, I think, 7th, 8th.
Holy cow.
And
so this whole thing happened so quickly right after they got married.
Right after they got married. And even in these emails, she's saying, you're now saying you don't want to be married. You're now saying you would have never gotten married if you knew that if this is what marriage was like. Why did we get married? I don't want to be in this relationship. And he's defending a little bit what he said, but it's very clear that there are many problems in this relationship.
She says, I don't want an insecure man or a man that's feelings don't come natural, that you have to force yourself. Never expected things like that from you, but now I want you to tell me exactly how you feel. And honestly, you hurt me a lot by this, and I'm ready to pack and leave. And this is not a joke. I can't even sleep at night. She sent that to
November 5th.
November 5th.
In response to a very short, itemized list of what she should bring on this honeymoon where she doesn't know where they're going.
Yeah.
So this is all to represent that there's certainly challenges in the marriage already, challenges in the relationship. He's questioning whether he really loves her and if he wants to be married, and she is doing the same. So they go on their honeymoon.
So he wrote back, just to put a, this is from him, right?
Yeah.
Because we had a
No, that's from her.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry.
He's on the bottom of both.
I see. Honestly, I would never have told you if it was going to affect you like this.
I would have never told you I don't want to be married.
Yeah, exactly.
It's like,
you wanted me to be honest with you, and so
about?
I was. I did not say I regret things. I said very clearly that I did not expect to feel the way I was feeling.
Yeah.
It sounds to me like there's trouble in paradise.
There's
pretty
trouble
quickly.
in paradise.
Yeah, go ahead. I'm sorry.
And now that paradise is Cape Town. So now they're in Cape Town. So they're staying at Cape
so
Grace.
Beautiful in Cape Town. Look at that.
I asked you over the weekend, have you been to Cape Grace?
Yeah, I've not been to Cape Grace. I've been to Cape Town.
Well, they're staying at Cape Grace. It's one of the nicest hotels in the world. I looked up what it would cost you and I to go to Cape Grace.
I'm sure you
next
did.
month. It's about $1,300 a night.
I know one thing, that whatever room we get initially, you're going to go down to the manager and tell him you're not happy with it.
I'm already not happy. I haven't even seen the room.
All right.
But they're staying at Cape Grace. It's a gorgeous 5-star Fairmont hotel. It's stunning. And so they arrive, and when they arrive, they take a kind of public taxi, if you will, with a driver named Tongo. And they take this taxi to the hotel, which is already kind of a red flag that they don't have the hotel picking them up. Very strange. And when they arrive at the hotel, Annie goes directly into the hotel to check in, but Shrin stays with the taxi driver and talks to him for an extra 5 minutes. Mm-hmm. Then the taxi driver goes and parks in the parking lot of the hotel. Shrin goes in, they check in, and then he goes outside and goes back to the taxi driver and stays with the taxi driver for 10 minutes. This is all caught on CCTV.
So he, okay, again, yeah.
Yeah, so he's clearly corroborating or planning something. He's planning
in
something.
League or knows the taxi driver is trying to make a deal with it. Okay,
yeah,
good.
exactly. Okay. And there's a bunch of CCTV footage that corroborates everything that the taxi driver then later talks about in the planning of the murder of Annie. So they arrive, I think it's like the 9th or the 10th of November, and then they're there for a couple of days. Now, on November 12th, 13th, they're out. This is them going to dinner that night.
They're such a handsome couple.
They are such a handsome couple.
Wow.
She is absolutely stunning. Her family just loved her so much. They talk about Annie being the glue of the family and such an important part of both the nuclear family and then also the sort of cousins and aunts and uncles, the other parts of the family. She was absolutely the heart and soul of that family. So they're dressed up. They're going to dinner. If you go to the next slide, again, there's more CCTV. This is important because they look like a newlywed couple. They look like a happy newlywed married couple. And so they take some pictures in the bar. They're flirty in the bar. They then get into the same cab, this cab driver, Tongo, and he takes them out to dinner. Now, what's strange is, A, they're not taking the cars available by the hotel, which you might think they would take in South Africa, but they're taking this cab with Tongo. And if you go down, I think, Tony, it should show a map of where they go to dinner. So you can see that they go from Cape Town, which on the red is that top little circle on the left, and they drive all the way through the township down to the Strand, which is not a place that's high-end. It is not a place where tourists are. And they go to this really kind of common, not very exciting sushi restaurant there in the Strand. I mean, you'd think like strip mall, kind of.
Wow.
And they're all dressed up. It was very bizarre. And it was very bizarre that they would drive through the township. As I know it, I have not been to South Africa, but the township is very dangerous. And so to drive through it, especially at night, was something that would be very odd for them to have done. And so on the return from the Strand, they go through this neighborhood in the township, and that's where they get kidnapped. So two men come up to the taxi. One of the men puts his hand on the windshield of the taxi to stop it. They get in the taxi. They throw out the cab driver, Tongo. They throw out the husband, Shirin, and then they kidnap Annie. And so they drive Annie away. And Shirin gets back to the hotel. The cab driver eventually gets back to the hotel, and they report Annie kidnapped and missing. Now, the kidnappers take Shirin's watch, and then they take Annie's purse. And there will be later some inconsistencies in what's in Annie's purse from Shirin. But it's very strange that they would kick out two of the key eyewitnesses of the crime and just take Annie. They never ask for ransom. That's never what happens. Unfortunately, what happens is Annie is found murdered in the car the next morning on the side of the road in one of the township towns. So if you go down, you'll see a little bit more of the logistics of where she was dropped off. Where Shirin was dropped off and where Annie Dewani's body is found. She is found shot in the car with one bullet. So if you go down further and you're watching, it'll detail what is taken. What's also important here is Shirin originally reports that Annie's engagement ring is taken. But then later he calls the police and says, you can find the hidden engagement ring just below the seats tucked away. And if you go down, there's a visual of it. So in fact, again, there's huge inconsistencies in his story. So the police start an investigation into the murder. If you go down, you'll see the cab. You'll see that they're in the next video. They're holding up sheets so that nobody can see the extraction of her body. And they start to investigate this crime. Now, because one of the kidnappers had put his hand on the windshield, they had a palm print and they found out who it was.
Wow.
If that hadn't happened, these people probably would have gotten away with it, including, I would suggest, Shirin.
So go ahead. Who was it?
So here are the kidnappers. There are two kidnappers, and then there are the taxi driver and another person who set it up. So this is Zola Tongo. He is the cab driver. He is the most important witness to all of this because he is the only person who communicated with Shirin, who is being accused of murdering his wife and setting up a contract killing.
Sure.
So Shirin goes to Tongo during those times that we saw him in the cab, and he asks him if he can find somebody to murder his wife for 15,000 rand.
Wow. So Tongo says, this is what was pitched to me.
This is what was pitched to me. And in fact, it's such a weird crime because there is some point in the CCTV where Shirin, the husband, goes to the cab, goes to a bank with Tongo, pulls out a bunch of money. It's just all strange. It was like not well planned. The argument of the defense will be, why would this man, Shirin Dewani, go to South Africa and solicit support for this major crime with the first cab driver he meets? But I don't know. Maybe that's what happens with contract killers. I have no idea.
Again, according to the visual for the podcast listeners, 31-year-old man. He's 31. Tongo is from.
He speaks English very well. He's
had
well
5
educated.
children, all under the age of 10. So certainly needs the money, probably.
Yes, but he was making pretty good money. So the whole contract killing was arranged for 15,000 rand, which is about $900 US. And he was making about 30 to 40,000 rand a month. So it's not that much money. Yeah.
So continue.
So Tongo goes to the middleman, whose name is Monde. And Monde works at a hotel, and he goes to Monde and he says, I need some guys to kill this tourist woman. Her name is Annie. Her husband Shirin is looking to hire men to kill her. Monde sets it up. So if you go to the next visual, there's some CCTV footage where this is Monde. He's calling the 2 men that ultimately get hired to murder Annie. So he's the one that facilitates that. And then in the next visuals, you'll see that this is in fact Shirin paying off Tongo for the murder after it happened. And he had actually left. He was in the hotel lobby with Annie's father, his father-in-law, and the police, and he left, went upstairs, gave Tongo the money in a white envelope, and then went back downstairs like nothing was happening. So, yeah. And then the next couple of visuals are the 2 men who, in fact, carried out the kidnapping and the murder. The first one is Kwabe, and then the second man is Menjeni.
They're both 26 years old.
Yeah, they're both young. They are both, I think, unemployed. Kwabe goes on the record and he says that Menjene is the man who actually shot Annie, but that is in fact impossible based on ballistics. It must have been Kwame. But Menjene actually goes to trial, and both of them are found guilty, and both of them go to jail for the rest of their life. Menjene dies of a brain tumor in prison at a very young age, I think.
So let's just go back then. So, but the actual hitman was probably who?
Kwabe.
Yeah. So the trial itself.
There was only one for the accused. Yeah.
Okay, and but Kwabe was convicted, or?
Yes, they're all convicted. They all take pleas.
They
all
pleas,
take pleas.
Exactly. Okay.
And
because
then,
go back one if you would, Tony. This guy, not Kwabe, but the
Menjene, he is the only one with a trial, and he is found guilty, and he is finger pointed as the man that pulled the trigger, but that is in fact impossible.
He's 20 again, the 26-year-old. Yeah. And then one guy made a plea deal, I saw. But I mean, and among the things he did was lie in court, right? Or
yeah. So they all take plea deals, and they're all lying. Yes,
I see. Everybody's lying. So
everybody's lying, and every day he takes a plea. Monde, who is the man that hires the 2 kidnapper, he is. He doesn't face any time.
That's exactly what I wanted to get. Thank you. Go back to him, Tony.
He does not
one
face
back,
any time.
I think, of where you are.
Yeah.
There he is, Monde. Mombolombo. He ends up.
He has full immunity.
He was in charge of the whole plot, and yet he gets full immunity.
Yes, but he was not conspiring with Shirin. That was Tongo, the taxi driver. So they give him full immunity for his testimony.
Because he blew the whistle on everybody else.
Exactly.
Wow.
Exactly. And it's crazy because all of this happens, and every single moment of this, as it relates to the cab driver and Monde, all happens with CCTV capturing every moment. So much of the corroboration of their story happened through live video that was captured when this was
I just don't
done.
see how the guy who, there he is on the phone organizing it all, essentially arranges for this murder, how he completely skates. I understand how plea deals happen, but how he completely skates and gets immunity is sort of another level of plea deal.
I mean, he's also using the work phone. I just don't.
HR, you think is going to want to?
I don't know that I might step outside to make that call, but he decided not to. So I agree. I don't know. That was another big question.
Where's the husband, the Indian husband?
Husband goes back to UK with Annie's body, but
pretends
that nothing is.
Oh my God,
he has nothing to do with
the love
it.
of my life. We barely got our life started together, and now look at this. Here she is.
Then somebody raises their hand, and that man is Leopold Leischer. And Leopold Leischer comes forward and says, I have been having a gay relationship with Shirin Dewani from 2009 to 2010, so the exact overlap time of his relationship with Annie.
Wow.
And he has been hiring me for gay sadomasochistic sex.
Oh,
yeah.
wow.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
So he is a key witness in all of this because he provides motive. So the motive being that Shirin was a gay man who felt pressured to be in a relationship that was heterosexual, married Annie, did not want to be in a marriage with her, and this was the only way out.
Man.
Yes. So he is the key witness for the prosecution in South Africa, but the judge throws out his testimony before it really even starts.
What?
Yeah.
What happened?
She says that there's no connection between the relationship that Leopold had with Shirin and how that applies to what happened in South Africa. And the prosecution says, well, Shirin told Leopold during some of these evenings that they had together that he felt a lot of pressure to get married. He did not want to be married, and he didn't know what to do about that situation. So he is important and core to the motive of why Shirin would have set up this contract killing.
Of course.
Yeah. But his testimony is thrown out before it even starts. And to me, again, I don't know the South African judicial system, but this is a huge red flag because this is core to the evidence of the motive. Now, Shirin had hired a very important legal mind in South Africa. And when they first start the case, you can give a sort of plea representation or exhibit of why you are pleading guilty or not guilty. And Shirin pleads not guilty and then explains that he is in fact a bisexual man. So the defense goes very early with his sexuality so that it's not as big a surprise later. And that really deflated some of the testimony from Leopold.
Wow.
What is crazy?
So let me just get this straight. So when the dust settles legally, Shirin skates?
He skates.
He kills his wife in South
kills
Africa,
his wife.
arranges a contract killing,
Yeah.
and then skates on the murder charge.
Also, like another...
And they drop the murder charges against him, in other words,
Yeah,
because
he's
of what the
found-
judge said.
But they drop the murder charges because of some inconsistencies in the testimony from the cab driver, Tongo. He basically throws his whole testimony and it sinks the case. And so Shirin walks. Yeah.
Just
And
unbelievable.
I have to imagine, again, this is me speculating and my conspiracy theorist ideas, but I have to imagine Tongo had some kind of payoff because he absolutely sank all of his testimony. He was represented as not being a believable witness. And because of that, they threw out the entire case because he was the only connection between Shirin and the conspiracy around the contract
So even though
killing.
they have CCTV, and
Yes.
even though these various people
And they didn't
admit,
even
and
get
they
to
admit to
that.
being part of it?
Yeah, that they didn't even get to that.
Because they threw out the case
Because they
before
threw out
we
the
even get to
case.
that.
And
Oh
the
my
other thing,
God.
just quickly with Leopold, it's less about his sexuality and his sexual preferences, but Shirin was telling Annie's father, his father-in-law, he didn't believe in sex before marriage, that he was very religious and committed to Annie. These are huge representations of lying and misrepresenting throughout their entire relationship. That is also crucial to motive and evidence of him killing her. So it's a horrible, tragic story. And imagine her family lives every day knowing that
That he's still
Shirin
out
knows
there.
what happens. He's
Yeah.
still out there, and he will not tell them what happened.
I mean, we all know what happened.
Yes,
I mean, you just
we
told
all
us
know what happened.
It's
This is her family burying Shirin. And then the next visuals are Shirin has now come out with his gay relationship. He is in a relationship with a man. Gledson is a photographer from Brazil. He lives in London. And then
Well, he's not a very good photographer. Those pictures are not particularly strong.
Those aren't really great.
Yeah.
Those are Instagram. But the last visual is really just to show you the differences on the 10th anniversary between Annie's family going to where, in fact, the crime scene was in South Africa, celebrating her life and remembering her. And Shirin is in London, coming home from the gym and carrying his cat.
That is
yes.
absolutely awful.
It's awful. It's an awful story. It was a really, really well done documentary, I thought. It's a 4-part documentary, and I thought it was very well done.
And you thought that's one of the reasons that you did. She likes to, Courtney does bring things to here that if there's interest, you can follow up easily. It's kind of in the moment.
Yeah.
And so that's on Max.
It's on Max.
And it's called what?
It's called Honeymoon Murder.
Honeymoon Murder.
Yes.
Wow. Such a sad story.
It's a really
Courtney,
sad
I
story.
love you being here.
Thank you for having me. Thank
Enjoy
you.
our time together. And that is True Crime Corner for you.
True Crime Corner, only on the Mark Thompson Show.
Right on.
The Mark Thompson Show.
This show had a lot in it. If you're here for the discussion of Donald Trump and the debate wriggle that he's doing, it's essentially a negotiation. Both sides are negotiating. I mean, as you know, on some specifics. But I'm seeing in the chat, though, people filtering in, talking about what he's doing now. As I said in the first hour, and if you want the whole breakdown, I thought we broke it down pretty effectively, and it was pretty succinct. And I read you some of his posts, etc. He's working the refs, man. This is what Trump does. He works the refs. So if things don't go well, he has an excuse. He is in enemy territory with ABC. They're out to get me. And when it comes to the overall question of debates, how many there should be, where they should be, he's working the refs that way also. How come she's not agreeing to Fox News or CBS, etc.? So we'll continue to follow the story, but Trump has a vested interest in the debate. It's something he wants. So despite all his protestations to the contrary, he wants this debate, and so does Kamala Harris. Protestations is a ding word. Yes, we've run a little bit long, but that is because we love you, everyone. Damn it, that's the reason. We're not dictated by a hard clock. Our North Star is your happiness, everyone. Can I say it? There it is. And I appreciate your vote. Thank you. Thank you. The like button is the vote. You smash it.
Smash
and,
it with your
everything
iron
costs
rod.
you nothing. You don't have to register or anything. You simply smash the like button
Smash
like a
it
boss.
with your iron rod.
So again, first hour, you'll get debate, conversation about Trump working the refs. Also, I think some details on other Trump-related news. Gary Dietrich talks Georgia and the fact that many candidates are there. When I say many candidates, essentially it's a rugby scrum of candidates hitting the state of Georgia. And Gary actually had some interesting reasons strategically why that's the case. And it's not all strategy related to winning the state of Georgia. That's all in the first hour. Before we leave you, was there anything I needed to take care of? No, I don't see anything. We said we
have one of these come in, the super sticker.
Oh yeah, from No Contender, who's kind of playing on the the Thomas thing from before.
Yeah.
We also wave these idiots regarding the Dave Chappelle draft, talking about the guys who are the contract killers in South Africa. Big shout out to No Contendo, who's a regular in our chat. And I think that is it. Wow, Tony.
Yeah.
I think it's time to say goodbye. I can't believe it.
The Mark Thompson Show.
I'm not happy about it, but now I begin a big meeting with Tony about how we slice and dice this thing to get it out there in video form. That's Tony's superpower, is the slicing and dicing. I know what you're saying. You're saying, I didn't get enough Kim. How can I get more Kim? Well, the After Party Live is where you'll find Kim, and you can find her there in seconds.
We'll do it live. I'll write it, and we'll do it live.
She does it live, and she talks a little bit about what's been on this show and some other stuff. What's the problem, Tony? Is there an issue
I
or
was saying
something?
link in the chat. That's what's pointing down.
A link in the chat.
Thanks, Tony.
All right. Yes. Very, very well done. Tomorrow, the Pulitzer Prize winner David K. Johnston joins us. We will talk more. Great show, guys and gals. Time for a party with Kim now. Stay well, friends, and...
I'm Shadow Stevens for The Mark Thompson Show. Bye-bye.
As the shadow says, bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
I know we're out of time. Thank you, everyone. Thanks for the support and sharing the show, and bye-bye.